How much of a ceiling was there for you because you hadn't played at that level?
It was an ex-England player, and he said, yeah, you're a great teacher coach. Just a shame that you'll never coach at that highest level because you've never experienced standing out there in a centre circle in front of 50,000 people. It was like a pat on the back and a slap in the face at the same time and reminding you of your place in the game. And I was like, nah, I'm not having this.
You realize at a certain point, again, you're living in a council flat when you're on your own, essentially, in your late teens. You probably have realized at that point you're never going to play professionally, right?
Yeah,
that kind of kicks in at a certain point. How do you sow the seeds of the career you have had coming out of that?
I remember playing on the wing, and I was playing against a fullback, and he had a beard, and he was like 15, and I was a late developer, so I was sort of like smaller than I am now. And I just remember coming out going, physically, I cannot play. I cannot play at this level. And it was like the dream was extinguished like that. Like, I am so far off this level. And I never really came back to it. So the coaching came, we had to fill in these voluntary hours. I love football, and my voluntary hours was done coaching under 12 kids. I'm teaching them tricks and skills, and the kids really enjoyed working with us, and I loved it. I absolutely loved it. And I went, from there, I'm going to go and get my coaching badge. So within a year, I got my FA coaching certificate. I was 17-year-old. And I remember going from just being a playboy, coaster, not really knowing what I wanted to do, to I've got a purpose now. Now I'm off to university, doing a sports science and teaching degree. And it was like something just clicked. Like, this is it. This is what I'm going to be. And then the universe turned again. This guy, Simon Clifford, he was running Brazilian soccer schools in Leeds. And he'd been to our university, and he came and did this session, and I was just blown away. He had samba music on. I'm like, this is what I want in my life. This is how football should be. I've always wanted to see football like this. So he gave us a franchise when I left university. I became the first Brazilian soccer schools franchisee, and I had the whole of the Northeast. That was it. So I was going to bring samba to Newcastle. I was like a disciple. I was like, you know, John the bloody Brazilian Baptist. So I'm up in Newcastle and I'm preaching Brazilian soccer schools, and the kids were coming from everywhere, like everywhere, to be part of what I was doing.
Like, that was you. It was kind of set out, right? That you were going to teach and you could run the soccer schools and stuff. But did you still have the ambition to coach at a higher level?
The academies system was starting to develop in England at that time. You could sense that football was becoming even more professionalised. So the time with Sunderland Football Club, you know, that came about by players were bringing their kids to my Brazilian soccer schools. And then the academy director came to one of my sessions and reached out and said, look, you know, would like to give you an opportunity. So the Brazilian soccer schools just opened a crazy amount of doors for myself, and, you know, it really set us on the way to professional coaching.
The culture of professional football at that stage. How much of a ceiling was there for you because you hadn't played at that level?
There was a huge stigma at that time that if you'd not played the game at a high level, you couldn't coach the game at a high level. You couldn't work with pro players that have lived those experiences. It was an ex-England player. It was a defining moment, because this is where the fighter came out. I'm walking past him, he said, great session, John. He says, I love watching you. And I goes, oh, thank you. He says, oh, my son loves coming and he's really enjoyed this year with you. I said, thanks. And he said, yeah, you're a great teacher coach. Just a shame that you'll never coach at that highest level because you've never experienced standing out there in a centre circle in front of 50,000 people. You can't buy that. It was like a pat on the back and a slap in the face at the same time, and reminding you of your place in the game. And I was like, nah, I'm not having this. And that was it. You know, there was that moment where I've gone, I don't see my future here. I don't see it. The culture is sarcastic. It's stuck. I felt the culture was stuck. So I was gone. That was it. I'd made the decision. I'm getting out of here.
Moving into the women's game, what was the biggest difference coaching when you went to New Zealand, coaching the women's game versus coaching men?
The New Zealand experience took us back to my Brazilian coaching days, because now I'd been given this blank canvas for the whole half of the South Island to run football any way you want. If you had a British accent, pretty much at that time, like, you could do what you wanted.
Herdman, he's not a New Zealander, he comes from County Durham in the northeast of England. John Herdman also is Director of Football Development for New Zealand football.
The technical director said, John, you can coach the U17 men's team to the World Cup qualifying, or you can go down the women's path and take the under-20s team potentially to their first World Cup ever. I want that. So it wasn't like I want to be with men or women. It was, I want to go to a World Cup. And it was amazing, because in 2006 we took this New Zealand team, which was like a ragtag team. We pulled together and we did some innovative things. You know, 2006 World Cup was a game changer, because we drew with Brazil. We got our first ever international point, men's, women's, girls, boys. We drew with Brazil.
The story here is about New Zealand. This draw will be very sweet for them indeed. You'd think they'd won the darn competition, the way they're celebrating.
The team got like Team of the Year, and I got a Coach of the Year award, and that was it. This is it. I'm an international football coach now. So coming out of that, I was sort of headhunted to go into the interview for the 2008 Canadian job. And I remember being in this hotel for 2 days, and I went down for a bite to eat, and there's Carolina Marachi sitting there. She had the blonde hair, you know, suntan, done up to the hilt with the Italian gear on, you know. I looked at the business, and there's little old me with my suit that was 3 sizes too big. And I'm thinking I'm going in to interview with this woman. And she looked at us, and she did look at us up and down and went, "Are you here for the same thing I am?" And I went, "I think so." She went, "Good luck."